afternoon, Mets fans, and welcome to a Monday edition of Driving with Mr. Met. I am Mr. Met, and I hope you all had a lovely Thanksgiving. It's been almost a week since my last video, and wanted to get back and record something, although I don't have a whole hell of a lot to say because not much has gone on over the last 6 days or so that's really worth talking about. But I wanted to get a little video update in and chat about some of the news and rumors that have been reported or written about since Turkey Day. So I'll do that today and try and keep it brief. It is a cold and rainy day on this Monday after Thanksgiving. As I said in the opening, I don't know that I'm going to have a whole lot to talk about, but I feel like too much time has gone by since the last video. Unfortunately, this is that time of year when we're pre-winter meetings, right around the Thanksgiving holiday. There's just not a lot going on in baseball. And so what we're getting is we're getting a lot of conjecture and editorializing and expanding on rumors from the beat writers and the reporters and the bloggers that cover and follow the Mets. And what I'll try to do today, just sort of again briefly, is sort of go through some of these rumors that are being reported or being talked about or being discussed. But I think before I do any of that, I want to mention, if you guys aren't already listening to his podcast, I recommend you take a listen to Mike Silva's podcast. He does a really nice job covering the team. I think he's pretty even-keeled and pretty fair with his analysis. He's not a homer, and I think he's been spot on over the last 2 weeks talking about the Mets' approach to the offseason and this notion of, quote, winning the offseason. There's no prize for winning the offseason. And when I say that, and again, I'm sort of stealing from Mike Silva here, but when I say that, I mean, like, you can make a move for the sake of making a move and for getting that, back page, stealing the back page from the Yankees or from whomever. But at the end of the day, that doesn't matter. You don't win a prize for getting featured the most on the back page of the Post and the Daily News. That doesn't matter in the scheme of things. The scheme of things, the goal is to win the regular season, and win in the postseason, and nothing to do with the off season. Making, quote, big splashes and being bold. While that's great, and sometimes that does help win the season, it doesn't always guarantee anything. And that's where I want to lead into these trade discussions. And we've heard rumors and discussion about Noah Syndergaard being a potential trade candidate really since last trade deadline and before last summer, or this past summer. When the Post, or either the Post or Daily News, flashed that stupid photoshopped image of DeGrom and Syndergaard in Yankee pinstripes, where it's just like the eye roll of all eye rolls, like, yeah, right. But the idea with that was, look, the Mets aren't going to get better. They have to trade these pitchers. And I think the second half of last season really showed that was a foolish approach, and that with the appropriate pieces around these pitchers, they can compete. And if you listened listening to Mike Silva last week, he played a clip from MLB Network with Kevin Millar talking about the Mets rotation being so damn good, they should be the best team in the National League East because of this rotation. And over the last really 4 years, going back to the beginning of 2015, Sandy Alderson has done his best. And you can judge whether he did a good job or a bad job, however you want to, but he's done his best to build around this starting rotation. And now with Brodie Van Wagenen coming in, taking over the reins from Sandy, he's going to be tasked with the same thing. Do the Mets build around this rotation, and how do they do it? And the question is, does trading Noah Syndergaard make any sense if that is the plan? And while I'm not a fan of the idea of watching Syndergaard go pitch someplace else, for a couple of reasons. One, I own a couple of his jerseys and I want to keep wearing them. Two, I met him last year, and three, perhaps most importantly, he's young and under team control, and he's one of the most exciting pitchers in all of baseball. That being said, and the first two selfish reasons aside, the fact that he is young, under team control, and is one of the best pitchers in all of baseball is actually a reason to consider trading him, because of the potential haul you can get back in a trade. And again, I've said this before, the only way this makes sense for the Mets to explore this option is if they are intending to trade him for major league caliber players. Whether it's one player, whether it's multiple players, it cannot be prospects. If the idea is to compete in 2019 and have a legitimate playoff contender in 2019, then they cannot trade Syndergaard and not replace him in the rotation. The rotation is already a little bit iffy considering that Steven Matz and Jacob Vargas are in it. And I did it again with Jacob Vargas. I can't stop calling him Jacob Vargas. Jacob Vargas is the actor. Jason Vargas is the pitcher. I will eventually at some point get this right, or our Jason Vargas will get traded and I won't have to talk about it anymore. Anyway, with Vargas and Matz sort of anchor at the end of the rotation, it's kind of a question mark already. And I mean, Wheeler's coming off the best season of his entire career. DeGrom is the best pitcher in the world. Syndergaard is number 2 in that list. And if you take him out of the equation, you're bumping everybody up. And that's a recipe for disaster. So that number 2 hole has to be filled by someone outside of the organization. And that means that in this trade for Syndergaard, whether it's an immediate thing that happens in the same trade, or if it's a peripheral trade that happens alongside of it, the Mets have to get back major league starting pitching. And whether that's signing Patrick Corbin as a free agent, whether that's pulling off one of these trades that's been rumored about with Cleveland that includes catcher Yan Gomes and perhaps a Carlos Carrasco or a Trevor Bauer, someone who can fill in at the major league level and be not as good as Syndergaard. I think we have to get that out of the way. We're not going to get a pitcher who has the potential that Syndergaard has to anchor a rotation. But that's not to say that you can't get a major league quality pitcher who's going to give you the innings and who's going to be able to fill Syndergaard's spot. Not necessarily as well or as dominantly, but be able to satisfactorily fill that spot in the rotation. Again, I don't like the idea, but I get it. And before we all freak out about it, and before we all get all nervous that the Wilpons are dumping salary, and they're not ready to win or whatever, like the typical Wilpon arguments, let's remember that the other things we're reading about right now is this morning, the Mets are still in on Andrew Miller. No kidding. The Mets haven't ruled out signing Bryce Harper. Great. None of this is news, right? None of this is fact. This is just opinion being written by bloggers and beat writers and reporters who don't have a whole lot of news to report. So that's what's happening now. And the Syndergaard rumors are just that. They are just rumors. While they might make sense, there's nothing factual about any of them yet. So let's not freak out. That was the point of the video today. Let's not freak out. But let's also not close our minds off to the idea that trading Syndergaard, might actually make this team better in 2019. Who knows? You have to wait and see. I, for one, am ready to give Brodie Van Wagenen a shot. If he thinks that trading his former client is a good move for both the team and for his former client, I think that we have to agree that this guy knows what he's doing. Maybe. We'll see. So, I'm still of the belief that the Mets have to build around this pitching staff, that they cannot break this down, and that they can compete in 2019. MLB agrees. They released a story yesterday or the day before yesterday about 5 teams that underperformed in 2018 that will do better in 2019. The Mets were one of them. So I'm in agreement with that. That's, of course, glass half full, rose-colored glasses. I tend to wear them a lot, and when it pertains to the Mets, but I agree. I think this team is certainly better than they played, better than their record showed last year, and I think they'll be in a better position to play quality baseball for the majority of the season next year, as opposed to just in the second half and a couple of weeks in the first half. So that'll wrap it up for today. Again, not a whole lot to talk about, but I'll be back this week, hopefully when some additional news breaks or rumors break or something that's worth spending some time chatting about. If you haven't already bookmarked it, you can check out my my blog, which is tied to this video series. So if I'm not recording videos, I might be posting some thoughts and comments on my blog. So check me out there. And as always, you can follow me on Twitter at Mr_Met. Thanks again for watching. I appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day. And as always, let's go Mets.